final red flag was the developer that I was working with for 5 months. I saw posted that he got a new job on LinkedIn. The weirdest part was I almost congratulated him. I was like, hey, good for you. Wait, didn't I just email you yesterday? I am so excited to be here, and admittedly a little terrified to be sharing this story, because as I was reflecting on it for tonight, I realized just how many fuck-ups there were in this big fuck-up story. And I got a little scared, but I'm really excited to share it. So please be courageous with me. So my name is Geeta. I work in retail innovation. And I wanted to start by first telling you a little bit about myself. So before this, I worked at Procter & Gamble, another big behemoth CPG. And the following photo describes how I felt working at P&G. One of these things is not like the other. I felt super surprised that I ended up there, and honestly a little bit shocked as to why. My background is actually in advertising. I'm a strategist for a number of years. I'm an advertising girl through and through. And after that, I worked in tech. I was actually in an accelerator in Toronto for a number of years. And so I sort of stumbled into CPG. And although I loved it, and honestly it taught me so much, I also started to feel like, my creative juices just weren't being met, and I had all these great ideas of how to do business and how to do work and how to partner with retailers, and there wasn't really an avenue for them. So I decided to look somewhere else, and I thought, I'm not going to do CPG. I'm going to go back to tech or maybe work for a startup. And then I stumbled upon this role on LinkedIn, and it honestly seemed like the perfect job. It was a mix of all the things that I'd done and that I could do. It was a mix of understanding tech, it was a mix of understanding retail, and it was a mix of design thinking. And so I thought, oh gosh, I really got to get this job. And so I fought really hard for it, and I got it. But what I found out after I got this job was that it was globally unique, meaning no one else in the world, in the J&J network, has this job. And because of that, there are a lot of eyes on what I'm doing, what I'm producing, the results I'm bringing in, and ultimately the value that I have for the company. In a sense, I'm sort of like a pilot. And if my role is successful, then there could be openings for multiple roles across the globe in this giant multinational company. Cool, cool, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, I can definitely do that. I can handle that pressure. So, new in the role, I knew a couple things. I knew that I could do it, but I also knew that I needed a win on the board. I needed a project that was really going to kind of catapult me into stardom and really kind of get my role valued. And so this is actually the board. And I needed a win on this board of all the projects that I was working on. And so I decided that the model that I was going to use to flesh out this new role and this unique role was this. It was perfect. I would find cool startups in Toronto doing awesome work, partner with them, develop an MVP or proof of concept in our lab, and then pitch that MVP to a retailer that we had an established relationship with. It was foolproof. They would have to accept this amazing MVP and scale it. So I decided, okay, this is an awesome model. This is good. But what should I solve for? So I decided to solve for this. When you are shopping, as consumers, you must know, it is so damn confusing. Like, what do you buy? And especially when you're sick or when you're in pain, which is the products that we specialize in, that's when you're really sort of overwhelmed. Like, what the heck do I buy? Like, which version? What color? What price? So I decided this was a great problem statement. How might we make shopping easier? And so I thought, okay, that's a good problem statement. Now I just need a startup. And I sort of, asked internally. I was new, so I didn't know what relationships already were established. And I learned that someone had a relationship with an augmented reality company. And I thought, oh, this is it. This is it. We're going to use augmented reality, and we are going to light up the shelf based on what you need. So imagine you input, my back hurts, products on the shelf would come to life that were related to back pain. So I thought this was a great model. So I'm really excited I meet this startup, and this was my first fuck up. I didn't assess them at all. I didn't really ask them any questions. I was sort of excited for them to tell me and ask me questions. And I really relied on that established relationship versus maybe asking a couple of things like, who have you already worked with? Or, what kind of roadmap do you have? Or how much funding do you have? Who's on your advisory committee? So going sort of on faith, we have our first kickoff meeting. I'm so excited, and I say, okay, here's my problem. And they go, awesome. It's going to take 4 weeks for an MVP, minimum viable product. And I go, oh, it's 4 weeks. Wow, picked a good one. This is going to be great. Now, part of me knew that that was too fast, but part of me wanted so badly for a win on the board that I accepted that. And I was like, yep, let's go for it. Let's do this. So a month goes by. No MVP is delivered. 2 months go by, no MVP is delivered. 3 months go by, and no MVP is delivered. But you know what we have done a lot of? Meetings, meetups, lunches, coffees. So here's what I'm going to tell you. There's always a balance and a dichotomy between project management and relationship management. And I went too far one way. I was so invested in the relationship with the startup, with making them like us, with making them trust us, with them meeting our president. They ended up being on a first-name basis that I excused the missing of these deadlines. And I excused the behavior, ultimately, which was kind of unprofessional to not deliver. So that was my second fuck-up. 4 months go by. 5 months go by. Now I'm getting questions, again, from global senior leaders. And luckily in big companies, you can kind of say like, I mean, you know how it is, it takes a while, there's a lot of swirl happening, and that's actually something that happened. So I was sort of hiding behind our side. I'm like, it's caught up in legal. Things are happening. But that was not true. That was poor legal, I'm sorry. I'm used. So final red flag was the developer that I was working with for 5 months. I saw posted that he got a new job on LinkedIn. The weirdest part was I almost congratulated him. I was like, hey, good for you. Wait, didn't I just email you yesterday? So I called the startup. I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they were like, oh, he wasn't a good cultural fit. It's fine. It's actually better for us. We can work faster. He was actually hindering the project. We're going to get this done. And I was like, awesome, cool. But this is when I really honestly started to panic. And the worst, I think, is this. We paid them in advance. Now, not fully. I paid them kind of milestone payments, and I'd set them up in our system, which is automated because we're a big company. And I had expected a 4-week deadline, right? So I had set them up for an 8-week, which I thought was, being very risk-averse, 8-week payment plan. So they ended up getting paid for half the work at 8 weeks. And I was 6 months in. I'd obviously stalled all of their payments, but at this point, I have now paid them. So I'm now invested in getting a frickin' deliverable, right? Like, I don't want this project to end. Give me something. There's money at stake now. 6 months go by, 7 months go by. And at this point, I now realize that I have to swallow my pride and do the very responsible thing, which was talk to legal. And that is the shittiest thing to ever do, is to set up a meeting with legal and say, hey, I got to break up with somebody, and I don't know how to do it, and I'm really scared. And I picked the wrong partner. And it's you really need a good team behind you. And luckily at J&J, honestly, they were so supportive, and they got it. They're like, you know what, Geeta, we get it, and we're not going to make this more complicated. We're just going to have an amicable breakup. And that's what we did. I had to have a really tough conversation with the startup, who I actually really liked. We were friends at this point, and break up with them. So after that, after the amicable breakup and explaining to leadership what happened, I kind of had a bit of a moment where I thought, okay, well, that is the end of me. Guess I am going to startup, because there's no more room for me here. And the most amazing thing happened. A couple weeks later, my manager sat me down and said, all right, what's your new model? And I stared back at him and I was like, what? And he was like, what's your new model? That model didn't work. What do you want to do now? And it was this moment of sort of being able to have the flexibility to completely recreate this role. So we actually had like a brainstorm where he asked me what went wrong. Okay, what went wrong? What did you learn? What went wrong? And I literally listed everything that I learned and everything that went wrong and how I would do it differently and how I would design this role now, knowing what I know. And he was like, awesome, go do it. Go do it. And so I did. I redesigned the role, and honestly, the ingredients are the same, but the relationships are different. I have now decided to maybe first start asking retailers, what do you want to solve for? What's on your mind? What keeps you up at night? And in fact, they are a willing participant. Surprisingly, not everyone asks them that. Everyone is trying to sell them something. And so all of a sudden, these retailers who we consider, our proud clients, are telling me what's keeping them up at night and saying, hey, I would love to solve for this. You know what, this is something that we'd love to do. We just don't have the time, we don't know how to do it. And so I'm so happy to announce that since that time, we have 3 active proof of concepts live. We have 1 that has results in that have surpassed benchmarks by 3 times, so 300%, and is being looked to scale globally with a major world retailer that I can't name. But, and what's great is that startups are still a part of this pie. They're an ingredient. At the end of the day, we can't do everything, but once I validate and understand what we need to solve for, I now know how to look for the right startups. And in fact, we're partnering with 2 startups that live right here at 111, and we're supporting local. So it's been a really interesting whirlwind of an experience, so I just wanted to share some key takeaways. The first, show your work. You might get part marks. And this is really true, if you remember from math class. So one of the reasons I honestly think that I wasn't let go, 1, J&J's an awesome company, but 2, I tracked everything. I used a project management software from the moment that I decided on that startup. Every conversation was tracked, every email, every attachment, every verbatim. I tracked every commitment that was missed and why. I tracked every deliverable that wasn't given and how long it would extend the project. And so whenever anyone asked me, Geeta, what's happening? It's 6 months. I'd go, well, so glad you asked that. Actually, in March 2020, this happened, and in February, this happened. And it became less about emotion and more about facts. But I had all the data ready at my fingertips. So I sort of showed the work in progress, and it kind of gave me part marks, and it allowed me to fail in a safe way. And then the final piece of feedback would be, and this is, you've heard this a million times, but I can't stress it enough, trust your gut. At that first meeting that I had with this startup, when they told me, yeah, we can deliver it in 4 weeks, my gut was like, no, you can't. What? No. What? Isn't there QA or something? I knew at that moment that this was too good to be true, but I ignored my gut. And so what I would tell you all is listen to your gut. It is wise. It knows more than you do. It knows more than your brain does. And if anything, it is powerful. So I will leave you with my favorite quote, which is from Marianne Williamson, and it is, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Thank you.
Have you ever failed in a project, career, or business? Whether you have or not, you can become a Fuck Up Nights organizer in your city, company, or university. Learn how at fuckupnights.com. Join the movement. Fuck up the system.